don't come to class? Well, the answer is, I have a lot of students that even when I record, don't watch the recordings. It's pretty embarrassing when I repeat something. And so I'm going to repeat this phrase. I will repeat this phrase every class. All right. That the reason that Marketing Channels has the end user in it is because the end user performs channel functions. I will repeat that again and again, and you will be surprised how many students will miss the 10 points. All right. The sessions that I record are good for you to go over your notes. All right. So I encourage you to please come to class and please participate. Those are vitally important things that, of course, you as students, you know, it's one of those things that's kind of your thing, but I want to go ahead and repeat that. So I have some students online and I have some students that are in here. So I'm going to go through the class list and I'm going to ask you, if you're online, to unmute and please say here. All right. So just in case you don't know, I mean, for all of your classes, if you're not in one of your classes in the first week and you're not recorded, you will automatically be dropped from that role. So just for all of your classes, please make sure you show up for the first week. It's really important because there are waiting lists and it's unfair to you to be in that loop and then all of a sudden get dropped out. Okay. All right. So let me go through the list. So Luke, okay. Let's see. You're not going to believe this.
Oh, it's just like, sorry. Yeah, it's you. Sorry. Yeah, it's like erasable.
All right. Modern science. Evie Baccarat.
Here.
Evie.
Here.
Anastasia Baker.
Here.
James Beam. Jacob Brooks.
Here.
Colin Browning. All right. Josh Bucksbaum. I see you, Josh.
Here.
Cameron. Okay. I'm going to pronounce that. Well, is it Walia or was it Waleeja? I'm horrible with names. I'm sorry. Sarah. Bryce Gregory.
Here.
Yeah, there you are. Savannah Hammond. See you.
Here.
Preston Hill. Gotcha. Liv Horn. Sam. Okay. Queen. Right. Christian Johnson. Okay. Austin King. Seth Kodak. Ben Locker. Carmen Mitchell.
Here.
Nope. Is it Corinne or Corey? Corey, sorry, man. Lake. Okay. Colin. Okay. Zach.
Here.
Zach.
Here.
Alora.
Here.
Samantha, I see you.
Here.
Back, I see you.
Welcome back, everybody.
Morning, doctor. How are you?
Good, doctor. How about you? Doctor. All right.
Amazingly, we have a full house. Even
You know,
online.
they do next door too. I'm so proud of these guys. You know, after the pandemic, nobody was coming to
Yeah,
class.
I
Now
know.
they've gotten over it. Thank God.
Thank God.
Yeah.
I hate teaching empty classlasrooms.
I know. It's like talking to yourself.
Yeah.
It is talking.
And I hate listening to myself.
Me
So, you
too.
know,
I'm so boring. It's unbelievable.
See you. All right, let's see. Where am I? Let's see. Sorry, Caden, is that right? Gotcha, Caden. Anna? Okay, and I got Sarah online. All right, very good. Full house. I'm very impressed. Found the other ones online. Okay. So, forgive me, my syllabus is going to be dated, but you're going to get the basic ideas. I will go up there and change that number in a minute. Let me do the share thing. Okay, so first off, my name is Dr. Schaus, pronounced like cows. They originalized the German spelling, but not the pronunciation. So I'm originally from Long Beach, Mississippi. I grew up on the Gulf Coast. I grew up 25 feet above sea level if I stood on the pine straw in my backyard. What am I doing here? Well, I fell in love with a doctor up here in App State, and I convinced her to marry me. We now have two wonderful children, Emily and Evelyn, 9 and 11. And Dr. Albinson, by the way, who is also a marketing research teacher, is my spouse. And good luck if you have her. She's the tough one in the family. All right. Somebody has to. So I'm in room 4112. I will usually be in, of course, before here, and then so usually afterwards. Also, I will be in by appointment as well, and certainly online if you need me. I am also the director of interns, which means for those of you who are looking for interns in the summer, I've already started getting interns or requests. So please let me know, or Business Career Services is the place to go. All right. It's all part of your tuition, folks. I mean, you've already paid for it, so by all means use it. Okay. I'm also director of professional education, which means that I also provide classwork for non-traditional students. I was a very non-traditional student. I got my master's degree in my mid-40s, and 15, 20 years later, here I am teaching a PhD. So I've had something of a career in life before. I worked in a computer store back in the 80s. I created an internet service providership in 1999. I had a business, did paychecks, had 8 employees at one time. I had 1,800 customers online, and then Walmart dropped the bottom out of dial-up internet when they introduced $4.95 internet. So here I was in my mid-40s, and I needed something to do, and I found that these letters that had come to me from my chair of marketing when I was at Southern Miss, who said, you'll never be able to enjoy just simply having one degree. You deserve something more. And it was a perfect point. Anyway, my goal is to pay forward like my professor did for me. I cannot pay my professor back for all the help, but I can pay forward to you students and hopefully help you to achieve your goals. And that's what I'm here for. So, marketing channels. It is kind of a misnomer in a way, in that why do we have channels when we have supply chain? That's always one of the questions that ask. So who are my supply chain people? Oh, good. Dr. Dave is and you're admitted. Yeah. Okay. Well, good. I'm also known as Dr. Dave. I do a Friday night scoreboard show for Mississippi still. I still do it. And I don't have my license plate Dr. Dave because I'm afraid Dr. Dave, people would think for me that I would be him. God knows. Okay. So what's the difference between supply chain and channels? It's always a big question. All right. So here's the reason why, if you're in supply chain, why you're in marketing channels and why this is important. All right. So have you got into just-in-time manufacturing? Any of those light touch? A little bit. You're going to get back more into it, the same kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, just-in-time is kind of one of those classic things in the 80s. It was actually an American invention. The Japanese perfected the whole idea. So let me give you an idea of what supply chain would do and where we would be different. Okay. So I have this thing that I have to do called manufacturing an automobile, all right? And this is my very crummy drawing of an automobile, all right? So let's say that the time that it takes to create one automobile is 28 days. Let's say from the moment that the chassis is laid down to the last piece of equipment is put on, let's say that it takes 0 to 28 days to be able to make this particular car. All right, now we know that this car has different things built into it. So it's usually made of some raw materials, and it is made of sub-assemblies such as the steering wheel, because maybe you don't create the steering wheel there. And certainly I'm not going to create tires, because tires is a very specialized thing, and I'm going to order my tires from Goodrich or Goodyear, one of those other things. So I've got all of these things that I need to do, but why should I fill my inventory with stuff when it may take days to be able to use this stuff? And so this is one of the thoughts with supply chain where just-in-time comes in. So let's say the tires are not needed until the 27th day, all right? But let's say it takes 3 weeks to order tires. So what it means is that before this car ever is on the production, what it means is that 3 weeks ago, we order the tires, okay? So it takes 3 weeks to get them in. Let's say that the chassis is the first thing that we put down, but let's say the chassis requires, let's say aluminum or fiberglass or one of those other things, but let's say it only takes 3 days to get it in. And so what we do is 3 days earlier, we order that. Now think of all of the pieces that come into it. And why are we doing all of this? Because one of the things that you're going to learn about in supply chain, you're going to learn about business, is that inventory is vital in order to sell, but there's nothing worse than inventory, especially when it comes to tying up capital, all right? You don't want inventory. You want goods to come in and out the same door if at all possible. And so what this means is that just in time means is that just as I am reaching for that tire in inventory, the truck is moving in, they're taking the tires and they slap that tire in my hand and it never goes into inventory. So that is what efficient supply chain management is, all right? And that's the way to think of it. Marketing, or channels, thinks of it in a different way, all right? So, all right. So, marketing thinks that instead of goods being pushed through the system, all right, which means basically that the manufacturer comes up with goods, they go to sell to the intermediaries. The intermediaries, like wholesalers and retailers, take the good, they have salespeople, and they push it to the end user. In marketing, we believe is that we create desire from the end user, all right? And goods are pulled through the system. We create demand to the end user asks for that. And what happens is ultimately is the goods become demanded by consumers and they get pulled through. And so this is what push means and what pull means as well. It used to be that there were not every good that we would advertise or pull, but we find that we can do all sorts of things. So has anybody ever heard of, you wouldn't, but this little blue pill that started with the words consult your doctor? Not that I know anything about it, okay? But that's one of the classic examples of where pharmaceuticals started, or gives you this whole idea of pull. Yes, it's Viagra and Cialis, okay? Let me answer the questions, okay? So that is a classic example of where demand creates the need, and the need requires a supply. And as a matter of fact, when marketing thinks about it, supply chain management thinks of this as the supply channel. In marketing, we think of it as the demand channel. We believe that demand creates the reason for supply chain in the first place. And so for you supply chain folks, it's important for you to understand both sides, all right? And we're going to talk a lot about things that don't necessarily have to do with supply chain, but all the other parts that make it important, okay? All right, so let's go briefly through. First off, you can always find everything on As You Learn. After today, I will have the recording of this session so that you can review what we've just gone through. I use not the regular book. I don't use the regular book, the 9th edition by Palmatier. I use the 8th book. The 8th book is online. It is, you can find it on half.com for 10 to 20 bucks. I will trust you that all of my sessions here, everything that I say will be not be or is liable to be on the test, but I promise you nothing that I don't talk about will not be on the test. In other words, the test data comes here and nowhere else. All right. I won't hide anything from you. It'll be everything that we talk about in the class, but I won't come up with some kind of obscure text from inside the book. I don't believe in doing that. Okay. All right. So how are these chapters arranged? The chapters are arranged in 4 blocks, or excuse me, 3 blocks. So the first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the basics of marketing channels and how you go about as a marketing scientist analyzing those channels and finding out whether they are efficient or not. We will talk about in history where channels were efficient and where channels were not. And we'll talk about how the market decided to be able to basically compensate for these things. The benchmarking will be what we first talk about. We'll then talk about the traditional and emerging channel structures that we have. We'll talk about retailing, wholesaling, and franchising, and then we'll do less on emerging channel strategies because that's a lot on one test, all right? And then finally, we're going to talk about the interpersonal parts of what marketing channels has to be about, because it is important to realize there may be no more interpersonal connection in all of marketing than there is in channels, because you have independent organizations that must find ways of working together. And so we're going to talk about some really deep stuff. We're going to talk about power, the nature of power. We're going to talk about conflict and how do we go about managing conflict. And then finally, we'll talk about how do we build long-term arrangements. It's going to get very Dr. Philly in here for a while, okay? But you know, I find that my students really like this last part the most. And so that's why I'm going to maybe chop a little bit off at the beginning and then talk about the rest at the end. So we will start out, the dates are wrong, I'll fix those. We'll talk about how do we understand channel strategy. We'll talk about segmentation and targeting. And we think about segmenting and targeting tend to be by product and by other things, but place has a very valuable place in channeling, in segmentation and targeting. We'll talk about how do we audit the channels, and then we'll have our first test. Because the book says we go chapters 1 through 5 on the test, that's way too much. Believe that's way too much. The second is we'll talk about make or buy. Do we make our own goods or do we buy them? We'll talk about what is the standard way in which we think, the way we have to start from, and realize that we have to be able to justify actually making the goods that we have. We'll talk about how do we design the channels that we have, whether the channels should be intense, the type of channels we use, and how do we go about closing gaps in channels as well. Then we'll have chapters 4 and 5 for the next test. The third test is we are going to talk about retailing, wholesaling, and franchising and how those have evolved over the last decade, especially with COVID. And then we'll have our third test. And then finally, we'll be moving into power and conflict relationships. Now, in the middle there, if you notice, we're going to have these things called position papers. So what is a position paper? And I will remind us when. You're going to be in a position when you go out and you get your jobs that you're going to need to be able to defend yourselves when you have an opinion that you think is vital. It's going to be a hard thing to do. We tend to gravitate into positions where we try to get along, and that's important as well. But realize is that when you have a job and when you have an important idea that needs to see the light of day, you're going to need to be able to express yourself. One of the greatest statements I ever heard was, the ability to express yourself in a logical way may be the most important skill that you have. And that's what I want you to use these position papers for. So a position paper will be a statement, all right? The position paper, the first one will be that the best way to sell electric vehicles is through a traditional retailing structure. And you and your group are going to have to strongly state yes or no, either one way or the other. There's no prevarication. There's no, on the other hand, you're going to stand up and state why you believe that is the most important way. And this is how we go about doing it. All right. That'll be what the position papers are for. The position papers will count for 20% of your grade. I have had students that have jumped 3 grades because of the excellence of their position papers, especially when some of it is, it's pretty amazing. Beware of artificial intelligence because I will be scanning these through AI. So I'm not going to, I'll be able to tell whether you work on it or not. It is important also to learn how to use your library, and I will show you how to do that. And it is important to learn to back up your facts with journals that confirm those particular beliefs that you base your opinions on. I'll show you all that. Okay. By the end of this all, I expect you all to be pretty strong in your ability to be able to support arguments that you think are important. I want you to come out of that here with us. Okay, we're all good? All right, we're going to do some brief stuff, and then we're going to get out of here. We're going to go through part of the chapter. We're going to talk about the basics of what channels are, and we'll talk about this structure again, and we'll get out of here and enjoy some snow. So, why the heck are we studying channels in the first place? I thought channels were dead. When I was getting my PhD in 2006, I worked in channels for 25, 30 years, and it was important to me, and I wanted to be in channels as well, but channels was dying. I mean, as even a discipline within marketing. I did this study on the AMA and looked up place or channels, and it was ranked 247th in the listed of topics that were in the AMA itself. And so I wrote an article, I'll show it to you next on Thursday, where I said, does place still have a place? Well, unbeknownst to me, in 2007, 2008, there was this little device coming along that was going to fundamentally change everything. And it was not the telephone, it was the smartphone. So I was teaching a class at Louisiana Tech, and I'm behind the curve, and I said, how many of you have a smartphone? And everybody raised their hand, and I realized something had happened that was important that I completely missed. Well, this little device has forever changed the way channels operates, because channels from now on gave birth to the omni-channel. And now the world is upside down to the betterment, because the logical aspects of what marketing is, where we hopefully put everything in the hands of the consumer, they now have a device to do that from. And so channels is now big or bigger than ever. So why do we study channels in the first place? Well, channels represents a large portion of the world's business. 1/3 of the world's GDP is in channels, if you can believe that. 1/3 of all of the gross domestic product of the entire world is tied up around around channels. Channels represents the gatekeeper between the manufacturer and the end user. They control the inputs and the outputs, and how we perceive those inputs and outputs does a great deal to describe our satisfaction with the overall experience. So how many was happy to watch the NFL game on Peacock? Nobody, right? It was one of those stupid, but it was a really ill-informed decision. You know, Robert Kraft, who's the owner of New England, he pointed this out and he said, one of the things that has made the NFL grow so strong is the fact that you can access it from anywhere. And I think that's one of his great, it's one of the great assets in the NFL. And when you put it behind a paywall, you are really hurting the consumer's overall experience. There's a guy I watch on YouTube. I'm a YouTube freak, and his name is Jaguar9. And he talked about not only that, but you know, the NBC used to be the Tiffany station for watching the NFL. They had all of the best broadcasters. Well, now they only do one broadcast. And this weekend, they were supposed to do 3 broadcasts. They just didn't have the talent behind the mic. And they did, it was not just behind the paywall, but it was bad ones behind the paywall. So this whole thing about the gatekeeper is so true. You know, how we are satisfied with the product many times is how we're delivered. It affects our perception of the brand image. And the NFL took a hit, deservedly so. And the last is that it is a very underutilized source of sustainable competitive advantage. Now, for those of you going to get your MBAs, or if you've heard this word sustainable or competitive advantage, you're going to hear this till you're blue in the face. A competitive advantage is a unique thing that you have that is different from any of your other competitors. That uniqueness is what's called a competitive advantage. A sustainable competitive advantage is something that can't easily be replicated by your competitors. One of the reasons why people go to Walmart again and again and again has nothing to do with customer satisfaction. Bless you. Nobody goes to Walmart and goes, man, that was good. I enjoyed going. You know, we hate it, but we go back again and again. And the reason has less to do with perhaps with the satisfaction, but the fact that Walmart generates value in whatever way. All right. And one of the ways that Walmart does it, I trash them in many ways, but I also praise them, is they have the best of marketing channels in the world, you know, bar none. And this is a source of sustainable competitive advantage. And that's what this strong channel system is. It's a strong source because here's of the 4 P's: price, promotion, product, and place. Of the 4 P's, which is the easiest to change? Price, promotion, product, place. Yes, very good. Price. Price is the easiest to change, which also inherently makes it the most dangerous. All right. It's just simply easy to change the price, and then you reap all of the problems that comes about from just doing this one little thing. Place is the most difficult. Place is the most expensive. It is like turning a glacier. It requires enormous amounts of expense. It requires a dedicated group of individuals who are constantly negotiating. And so one of the reasons that it is a source of sustainable competitive advantage is because it is so expensive to change. And if you've got it right the first time, then that will carry you for a long time. It is a hard to reverse investment. It is not easily replicated. And although distribution gets thought of as a necessary evil, you can flip it around and you can make it to your advantage. So, what is a marketing channel? This is one of those definitions you'll definitely see on the test, and it will probably be stated just as simply as this. A marketing channel is a set of interdependent organizations involved in the process of making a product or service available for use or consumption. It is important to note that it can be not just a product, it can be a service as well. H&R Block is a tax service. They have franchises all over the United States. Yet what do they deliver? They don't deliver a good. They could deliver a peace of mind of knowing that your taxes are done in an equitable manner. It may be perhaps one of the more difficult ones because it is not just one firm, it is many. Many entities are involved, many personalities, independent organizations that have their own mission statement, their own strategies, their own reasons for existence, and yet somehow there's some kind of reasonable kind of get together.
Thank you.
You're welcome. They have to find a way of pulling together in the same way. We're all part of groups and organizations that have their own ways of thinking and their own way of doing things. And in this one thing, they have to find a way to pull together. Why? Because each member depends on the other. Walmart, if I'm a vendor, may be about bargain with Faust. But I need Walmart in order to achieve success. And by the very same token, perhaps in a lesser level, Walmart needs me. Finally, it's important to understand that we need to constantly study marketing channels because marketing channels is a process, not an event. And so the way to think of this and you're going to see this many times, this is what's known as an iterative process. An iterative process basically means it's ongoing. If you ever heard the word iterative before, it means that there is no beginning or no end. The snake chases the tail. It constantly works upon itself. It works to improve again and again and again. And so this is what marketing channels are. Now I'm going to jump ahead to who participates in the channel, but I'm going to come back to the others when we come in on Thursday. And I'm going to come here. So, in marketing channels, there are only 3 participants. This is another important thing for you to remind yourself, all right? There are only 3. Many times I will give a test. I usually have essay questions, and we might put wholesaler and retailer. That's not how it works. There are 3, okay? So, who are the 3? First is the manufacturer, all right? The manufacturer generally is the prime mover or the first person in the link. They tend to produce the goods for sale. They can be the channel captain, but they don't have to be. Who is the channel captain? The channel captain is the party that has the keenest interest, spit it out there, interest in success. Channel captain is the party that has the keenest interest in success. For decades, the channel captain was the manufacturer. In the structure of power, the manufacturer controlled all. And then in 1996, Parasamon in the Harvard Business Review wrote an article that stated that the channel captain or the power in the channel system has changed fundamentally. And now the power in channel systems is in the intermediary. And it was all because of one big retailer. 1996. Anybody want to guess who that one giant retailer was? Starts with a W. Whoa. Somebody finish it? Walmart, yes, thank you. Okay. So Walmart started in 1963. It is interestingly enough, Walmart, Target, and Kmart all started in 1963. Kmart and Target started in Minnesota, and of course, Walmart started in Bentonville, Arkansas. All right. So with Sam Walton, Walmart was building one new Walmart every 6 weeks for a period of about 10 years. They fundamentally changed the landscape in which we buy things. We went from traditional downtown areas in which people went and shopped to one giant store. Walmart fundamentally changed everything, and they became the channel captain. So it's important for you on your test to recognize that the manufacturer may be the channel captain, but they may not be. It is whatever party has the keenest interest in the success of the marketing channel system. So the second is intermediaries. Intermediaries are every other party other than the manufacturer or the end user. That means intermediaries can be wholesalers who sell to other intermediaries, retailers, or they can be specialized. So we'll talk about those on Thursday. Everyone is looped in to the intermediary who is not a manufacturer or who is not an end user. And the last is the end user, because the end user is considered a vital link in the channel environment, because the end user performs channel functions. So what do I mean by performing channel functions? So I go to the gas station, and 30 or 40 years, no, 40 years ago, there used to be someone who would come out to your car and pump your gas for you. Then in the 70s, the embargo happened, the OPEC embargo happened, and the OPEC, or the Organization of Petroleum, exporters, OPEC, started limiting oil to the United States. And it meant that the price automatically started to skyrocket. And there needed to be a way for consumers to save money. And this is when you started to see the self-service gas station. And now, of course, everybody pumps their gas. In the pumping of the gas, manufacturers give you a break in the price. That's the way that we are compensated. The more that we perform as consumers, the greater the break we get. Anybody have a Costco account? Didn't know what Costco? Anybody? Okay. So do you have a card, or do your family, or whatever? So how do you buy toilet paper? What size? Yeah, like this, right? Exactly, because that's what a Costco does. Okay. So when you get this giant thing from Costco, what do you ordinarily do? Well, you take it and you make it into smaller sections. Okay, you break it up and you section it away in the smaller sizes. This is a service output in marketing channels that's known as breaking bulk, because you perform the breaking of the bulk breaking, you perform that as a consumer. That's why Costco gives you a break. And I'm a firm believer that I think we are gravitating towards a system in which consumers have greater and greater control. And I think that's great, because ultimately it means that the consumer has greater choices because they determine them themselves and they get a better break on prices. I'm one of those firm believers that your group is some of the toughest consumers that have ever been around, because you have one thing we didn't have. You have knowledge, okay? You have that at your fingertips that we didn't have, all right? And I think the greater choices that you have, the better chances you have of making the right choices. And that's why this little device is so powerful, all right? So these are the three key entities. There are no more: manufacturers, intermediaries, and end users. And I think that's a good place to break. We're stopping for today. We will move on with chapter 1, and it was a pleasure meeting you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.